agreement, the initiative for the safe transportation of grain and food from the ports of Ukraine, suspended after the terrorist attack in Sevastopol.
Very good news indeed today from Russia's defense ministry, as Moscow is now back to implementation of a very important Black Sea grain deal, thanks to the participation in a very active role of the UN and Turkey. The statement says the necessary written guarantees have been obtained from the Ukrainian side of the non-use of the humanitarian corridors in the Black Sea, as well as Ukrainian ports assigned for the export of agricultural products for military purposes. Earlier, President Vladimir Putin said that Russia suspends its participation in the Black Sea initiative due to security concerns following a massive Ukrainian drone attack on the Russian Navy in Crimea, the port of Sevastopol. The issue was addressed at the UN Security Council meeting. Moscow accused Ukraine of violating the agreement's conditions and also accused the British troops of being involved in Saturday's attack. The agreement, known as the Black Sea Grain Initiative, brokered by the UN and Turkey, was signed earlier in July in Istanbul with the participation of the Ukrainian and Russian sides as well, and it allowed boats with crops to freely leave the unblocked Ukrainian ports. And it was very important. Moscow was repeatedly accused of provoking world's food crisis by starting its special military operation in Ukraine, but Russia repeatedly denied it, saying that Western sanctions against Moscow is the main reason behind global food supply chains disruption. The main mission of this important grain deal was to help starving Africa and poorest countries that were most hit to survive. But Moscow had always had many questions on how it was implemented. As Putin reiterated many times, surprisingly, most of the ships went to the EU instead of Africa.
All right, to South Asia now, where Russia has become the largest oil supplier to India in October, surging to an all-time high of 22% of total crude imports. And now New Delhi has been, well, should we say, judged about the morality of buying Russian energy. This by a CNN host. Have a listen.
You know, we have 60 million people going to the petrol
There
market.
is no moral conflict with buying Russian oil.
Oh, absolutely none. Absolutely none. I think this is something you are creating in a TV studio.
No, that's not fair.
No, I don't have to. It's privileged conversation. I've said on record, not only now to you, Andy, but to you earlier and to we don't feel any pressure. Modi's government doesn't feel the pressure. We are the
Meantime, India has been stressing it will buy what it needs for the economic development of the country. India is on the way to become the third largest economy in the world with its rapid economic growth. That's according to the latest report from the International Monetary Fund. The country has already overtaken the UK. It's now in 5th place. India has emerged as Russia's second biggest oil customer after China, while Western entities avoid purchases, of course, from Moscow. This, of course, due to sanctions, and the flow continues to go eastward. Well, let's join political commentator Tahseen Poonawalla from New Delhi, who's joining us here on the program today. Sir, a very good afternoon to you, sir. Very good to see you today. What is your take on this recent interview of the Indian Ministry of Economics with CNN? It almost feels like the channel, in a sense, is judging India's position on Russian energy.
I think that India has an independent position. It's always had an independent position since the time India became an independent sovereign nation in 1947 under our first Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. India, like all countries, has to follow horses for courses and what is the best position for her population. And please remember, I have 140 million Indians to feed. I have 1.4 billion Indians whose energy requirements I have to look after. And wherever I get my energy requirements from, I am going to go and purchase it. One more thing, Russia has been my friend. It's been my friend for a long time, and I am going to maintain my friendship with Russia. I am not going to take moral lectures from the West, who indulge in hypocrisy on this particular issue.
All right, well, you've clearly got a very firm position on this, and we appreciate that here at RT International. But is there really a moral question when it comes to the interests of the people and the economy of India, as CNN was suggesting?
There is a moral question. The moral question is towards my 1.4 billion people. There is a moral question. I cannot leave my 1.4 billion people without their energy security. I follow the West. The West does not want me to deal with Iran. I have no problems with Iran. The West does not want me to deal with Venezuela. I have no problems with Venezuela. Now the West says I cannot buy my energy from Russia. I am sorry. I will buy my energy security from the place that my country will make my country secure. Secondly, let's be very clear. My Prime Minister, and I am fundamentally opposed to my Prime Minister. I'm in opposition. I support the opposition. But my Prime Minister has been on record telling Mr. Putin that this is not the time for war. So India has maintained its position vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine. But India's energy needs come first. We are the 5th largest economy in the world, soon to be 3rd largest. We have to secure our needs. And that, I think, is the fundamental duty of the Prime Minister towards the citizens of the country.
All right, fair enough. I mean, what about the idea of BRICS to scene? I mean, you've got the G7 countries, the Western countries mostly, who have sanctioned Russian energy. They're experiencing inflation, economic crashes, like the likes of which they've really never seen. You've got Vladimir Putin then talking about the biggest changes happening in the world since the end of the Second World War. Look at what's happening with BRICS as well. It seems that the BRICS members to scene are not joining on or jumping on the Western bandwagon of sanctioning Russian energy. Why is BRICS not joining the Western train on anti-Russia sanctions?
Look, I think more than looking at it from a BRICS perspective, you have to look at it from a perspective of individual countries. And each individual country will do what is in her or that country's best interest to secure their energy requirements. In each geographical location, the energy requirements, the necessities, the people they buy oil from, energy from are different. So first, India is in a unique geographical location. Other countries are completely different. That's point number one. Point number two, again, as the Honorable Minister, Mr. Puri, said in CNN, and prior to that, the External Affairs Minister, I must stress I'm politically opposed to both these people. India consumes as much oil from Russia in a month as Europe takes in an afternoon. So why is this moral lecture on India? And India has historical ties with Russia. India will continue to develop those ties, as will maintain friendship with the Western world. I don't think there's a conflict at all between the two of them.
By 2030, India is supposed to be the 3rd biggest economy in the world. What does that mean for the future of India and potentially that of the world? Is it going to step up to the plate, as in the metaphorical podium, and become that of a major world leader?
I think India's on its way to glory. I think India is a very important nation today in context of what is happening around the globe. We've seen the Indian Prime Minister speak to Mr. Putin and advise him it's not the time for war. They've also played a very positive diplomatic role when it came to vaccines, and India supplied vaccines to most of the countries. We've also stepped up and supplied wheat to the countries that have been where wheat has been shortage because of the Russia-Ukraine war. So India is doing a bit, and this has continued since 1947. Since we became independent, India is one of the largest contributors to the UN peace force. But yes, as India becomes the 3rd largest economy in the world, India will have to shoulder a lot more responsibility. India will have to make a lot more choices. And I think India's choice has always been pro-life, pro-democracy, and pro-peace. And I think India will continue to work on those choices.
All right, political commentator Tahseen Poonawalla joining us from New Delhi. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you. And thank you for joining us here on RT International. The Russian president right now holding a meeting of the Russian